If there was one thing that members of the black community did to ensure they remained enslaved, it was this one thing that we're about to go over right now. Now, I'm not talking about physical chains. I'm referring to mental slavery. And the reality is, when the mind is chained, there's no need for physical shackles. Because where the mind goes, the body follows. Even if it's down the road of destruction. Okay? We're continuing from the 1945 book Black Metropolis by Dr. St. Clair Drake and Horace Caton. Respect. White people with an interest in Negro progress sometimes profess shock at the distinctions Negroes make among themselves. This is something Negroes continue to do on their own. At this point in the 1930s and 40s, blacks were not physically enslaved anymore. Yet they still carried forward many of the cultural practices rooted in slavery, such as this. Most disconcerting are color distinctions, the lines that Negroes draw between black and light, fair and brown-skinned. Skin color distinctions were introduced by European colonizers as a tool of oppression. In most pre-colonial societies, skin color held no important status. It was no more important than an eye color or hair texture. It was just another simple human variation. But colonizers taught people to hyper-focus on skin color because the plan was to use skin color as a distinction between those who had rights and those who did not have rights, between those who would rule and those who would be ruled over, between those who would be at the top and those at the bottom, and between the superior and the inferior. So the outcome of this was the creation of a polarized society based on extremes. In the U.S., those with rights, those who ruled, and those who were said to be superior took on the name white. And those with no rights, those who were ruled over, and those selected to be inferior were forced to accept the name black and Negro, which mean the same thing. So from this context, blacks internalized the idea of colorism and continued it generationally, drawing the line between black and white, fair and brown-skinned.
How, they ask, can Negroes expect white people not to draw the color line when they do it themselves?
That's a fair question. Blacks wanted whites to stop judging them based on their various shades of brown skin, yet they themselves participated in the same activity within their own community. So it appeared hypocritical to whites. Negro leaders in Bronzeville usually throw the ball back to the whites by demanding, in effect,
how can Negroes ignore color distinctions when the whole culture puts a premium upon being white? And when from time immemorial the lighter Negroes have been the more favored?
That's easy to answer. Don't participate in that culture. Just because whites placed a premium on their color doesn't mean that anyone else had to follow along. And why would people follow along in a worldview that's purposely meant to destroy them? It makes no sense to do so. It's like jumping off of a cliff with other people who have parachutes, but you don't. Why would you do that? Now, even though it was self-defeating, I do understand why they did it. And that's because social and cultural pressure made it very difficult to do anything other than what they did. So I do have compassion for the people at that time. A Negro physician, for instance, told an interviewer,
"Any Negro who is honest will admit that he is dominated by the standards of the society he's brought up in."
That's what societal pressure does. It ensures that people mold into the standards set by the larger society. And it makes it to where only people with the strongest will can break free from it. So blacks, they have been pressured along in the colorism worldview, and they could not break free. They continue to see themselves as black and inferior always in contrast to white and superior.
When we're little children, we use storybooks in which all the characters have long blonde hair. When we go to church, we're taught that God is a white man. The Virgin Mary is white. What can you expect?
You can expect self-hate. That's what you can expect. You can expect a never-ending uphill battle of trying to get whites to see you as an equal. And that's never going to happen. Not under that socially constructed system they created. It's not happening. The way they created it prevents that from ever being an outcome. That's why you have to remove your mind from it, and you have to create a new one.
All our early concepts of desirable physical attributes come from the white man. It is a sociological rule that people are pulled into the standardized ways of thinking.
That's why I said earlier that only the strong-willed are able to escape. You won't find many people who actually think for themselves, because most people are pulled into the standardized ways of thinking, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it becomes a problem when you're following a counterproductive way of thinking. And at that point, you need to make a change.
The average Negro may say that he's proud to be black. This is more or less a defense mechanism.
He's saying it's reactive. It's not rooted in a true acceptance of that identity. It's a way to defend the bombardment of negativity that has been attached to it.
People in America don't black their faces and make their hair kinky. They would be laughed at. It would be too different from the American standard.
But what did blacks do? Straighten their hair. Every time I see this outside, I see a walking symbol of an inferior person, regardless if that person or anyone else acknowledges it or not. To me, it's one of the wildest things in society. Imagine white Americans making a conscious effort to tightly curl their hair. We would look at them as if they had gone mad. They've lost it. Something's wrong with them. People just accept the fact that blacks have gone mad and it's nothing really to call out when they do the opposite and straighten theirs. So people coming into the Earthpoist community, this is not allowed. Not allowed at all. Natural hair is a cultural marker, and it promotes a healthy self-esteem. I don't care if straight hair is the American standard or not. It's not in this community. What people have naturally is the standard. There is much truth in this argument. Black is a word loaded with derogatory implications in Anglo-Saxon linguistics. Now, does this sound familiar to anyone? Haven't we gone over this before? The authors say black is a word loaded with derogatory implications in the Old English vocabulary. Why does that matter? Because language shapes your perception of reality. The meaning of words, their synonyms, how you use them, all these become frames through which you understand reality. Things are black as sin. For example, if someone who killed a person is described as a criminal or a savage, it paints them as dangerous and irredeemable. But if that same person is described as mentally ill or deeply depressed, the tone shifts, and you might feel pity for them instead of anger. Same person, same actions, but different words which change the lens. That's why words matter. So this word black in the English language is linked to negative concepts that create a lens which influences people's feelings and judgments. And that's being directed towards people who identify as such. Pay attention. When you don't like a person, you give him a black look. Sin is disobeying the divine. In the English language, we clearly understand black as sin to mean a wicked deed, right? That's clear. Clear and unmistakable. No native English speaker would confuse this to mean anything good. When trouble passes, you emerge from darkness into light, which means dirty look. That's plain and simple. Conversely, that's damn white of you is a compliment. These are concepts we use to help understand reality. Darkness is a condition of not being able to see. It's symbolic of being blind, which relates to not having any understanding. Right? In the dark. It's also related to baseness, at the bottom, and a low state. That's why people emerge from darkness into light. You understand? Now, skin color that has more melanin could be described using any word that a person pleases. There's no divine command or any natural law that forces people to describe that skin color as dark. But that's how the Europeans decided to describe it, while they chose to describe their skin complexion as light. So when we think about emerging from darkness into light as a good thing, how does that influence the perception of skin color that's described as dark? What about light? What about black? What about white? Think about it. To be free, white, and 21 is considered the ultimate in independence. White people will even sometimes compliment a Negro by unconsciously saying,
"Good, you did it like a white man."
white is a compliment. It's related to ideas such as purity, cleanliness, morality, goodness, and many other positive associations, which is the opposite of the negative black associations. They socially constructed a matrix based on these extremes. And it becomes very obvious once the eyes start to open and the consciousness is raised from the darkness into the light. Scant wonder that Negroes have picked up the idea that black is evil, which doing it like a black man means what? You already know. When fair, i.e., light-skinned Negroes seem inordinately proud of their skin color, or when richer Negroes have a predilection for associating with very light ones or encouraging their children to do so, Bronzeville calls them color-struck. One color-struck woman told an interviewer that she liked dark-skinned people
in their places. I mean, I like them, but not around me. Their place is with the rest of the dark-skinned folks.
because that's how they've been indoctrinated, caught up in a matrix created by colonizers, which taught them to accept the identity of black and along with it to pick up the idea that black is evil. Another woman says much the same.
I have no ill feeling for the less fortunate, but I don't care to entertain them outside of closed doors.
Now, we usually replace the word dark for rich, but this time we left it in there to demonstrate the point. But here we see this colored woman thinking just like who? The white man. Those colorism ideas have taken root in the garden of her mind. And now she thinks just like one of them, as far as color is concerned.
I really feel embarrassed when people see me with black persons. I do have a friend who is quite dark. I love her and really forget that she is black until we start outdoors. I never go very far with her, though.
Who is she calling less fortunate? The people with the rich brown skin. She only wants company with them in private, and here's why. Of such people, a rich brown-skinned professional man observed, you see what I mean? This is how words affect people's perception of reality.
Somewhere in their early childhood, these light-skinned people who think they are better than the dark Negroes are taught that the nearer they are to white, the better they are.
Remember the emergence from darkness into light? This is how it plays out with skin color. The light and dark words used to describe skin color plays right into it. Fits right in there like the perfect piece of the puzzle.
They have a superiority complex. This attitude, just like the attitude of white people toward Negroes, is the result of propaganda.
There are very few fair Negroes who will speak so bluntly as the two women quoted above, but there are clear indications that light people, especially women, have a tendency to form social cliques based upon skin color. So the women especially were perpetrators of this kind of madness. There are persistent rumors that certain formally organized voluntary associations, including 1 or 2 churches, are blue vein, that is, will not accept any members whose skin is not light enough for the veins to show through. This is wild, isn't it? This sounds just like something that the whites would have done. Though there is no evidence to indicate that any blue vein societies, as such, exist in Bronzeville, there are a few clubs like the one described by the organization's secretary.
Don't quote me in telling this. Of course, it is an unwritten law in our club that all of the members range from light brown to yellow. I think it's positively silly because there are so many fine people who are richer.
The member of another club insists that such homogeneity is accidental.
The club is over 16 years old. The color pattern, I guess, would be light brown to fair. I am the richest member in the club. I have never paid any attention to that in any of the groups that I have been affiliated with. The question of a person's color or how much money he had or did not have has never arisen in any discussion that I can recall.
Let me know, good people of the planet, do we believe her? Who knows? But once again, we see that Negroes were not completely without fault. Within the Black community, they mirrored the same color-based social order that the white society had created to control them. And because Blacks internalized these ideas and carried them forward, physical chains were no longer needed. They took the psychological chains and enslaved themselves. So what else is there to do? Nothing. We're going to stop right here and we're going to pick up with some more related to this in the next commentary. I thank you for your time and attention. My name is Brooklyn St. Michael, and I'll see you in the free world.